Hi, everyone. This is 3.2 of my dysfunctional family system used mental health, judicial, and religious institutions against me. As I said in 3.1, the pastor's wife sent me an email informing me that because I was no longer a member of the church, that I would have to pay more on my tuition for my children to continue attending school at the Christian church. For which I replied, hinting about the situation involving her husband and forwarding that email to my father and my mother so that they could see what was happening. My father and mother chose to side with the pastor and remain in the congregation for the next 5 years. Over the next 5 years, I had made statements to my dad about the situation. Within the text that I had sent my father 3 years after the situation occurred, I was questioning my father on how a God could protect someone who sexually assaulted a woman, and how that same God could protect the congregants that stood beside him. For which my father responded that he had no answers. 5 years after my sexual assault in the church, this occurred again with a prominent woman in the congregation. This woman had been a member of the congregation before my family ever stepped into the congregation. She was very well loved. She was very well respected. And she held authority positions in the congregation from time to time with office management. At one point was the principal of the school. At this point, the pastor's son-in-law reached out to me to ask me questions about my statement that I had given 5 years earlier. Looking on that in hindsight, the pastor's son-in-law had recently been sat down for not preaching the same message that this pastor was preaching. And he was all up in his feels and looking for some sort of revenge. And because this had come out about this woman, now he was collecting information. And that's how and why he reached out to me again. Basically, I was used to prove to others that his being sat down was wrong, because look what is happening in the congregation. The right-hand men of the congregation, which included my father, met with the pastor in a meeting and brought to light that they were aware of the sexual assault that occurred with the other woman in the congregation. They spoke with him about stepping down for a while to be restored. He asked them all that if the following Sunday they would all stand on the pulpit with him as he made the announcement. Sunday came. All of the right-hand men stood beside him on the pulpit as he made an announcement. But the announcement instead was denying the allegations, and he pointed to all of the men standing with him on the pulpit that they were all standing with him. At this point, every person that stood with this pastor on the pulpit, their image was in question. And this seems to be what it's always been about in my family: protect the image at all costs. So my mother and father finally decided to leave the congregation. There was no, "We're sorry, we were wrong. I can't imagine how this made you feel." Nothing. Just weeks later, I was informed, we left the congregation. And it was left at that. Now me, my character, has always wanted the love and approval and acceptance of my family. And I actually used this opportunity as hope that maybe finally they will see that I'm not always wrong, and maybe finally we can have a relationship. And I freely forgave them with the hope that we could move forward from this and things would change. but their behavior toward me did not change. In fact, when one of my children had a conversation with my father concerning the situation, um, uh, and said, if mom was lying about this many years has passed by and she wouldn't still be talking about it. And my father told my child that he takes with a grain of salt the words that exit from the mouth of an alcohol-induced mind, um, claiming that at the time that I said this occurred, I was either on alcohol or using drugs with the girls in the house. So he was still in denial about what I said had happened, and tried to change the story in my son's mind, so that my son saw it in his light as well. This also let me know that my father was the one who at least spread the rumor, if not started the rumor. I eventually went no contact with my parents for their behavior towards me. That was the first time